Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Real Estate podcast. My name is Joe Bauer. I'm here with my co-host Julie Clark. Julie, how are you doing today?
I am blessed today, Joe. As you can see with this sunlight, I don't know, there's like a halo around me. I can't figure it out, but it is October 18th. I just had my deck sanded and stained. Crazy weather happening here in the Pacific Northwest, like summer. It's, I don't know if I like it, honestly. Even my kids are like, I want to wear my new sweaters, right? But we're going with the flow. I can't get away from the sun today. I have so many windows in my house here. I'm telling these guys, I can't seem to escape that. Either that or Jesus is with me today. That's what I'm saying, or whatever that is back there. But speaking of exciting, we are super stoked today to have our friend Justin Cambra back with us. We had Justin on, we were just saying, might have been pre-COVID, where he was teaching us all how to buy investment properties using your W-2 and your RSUs for you tech folks. And since then, he has broke free. And we are going to hear what his journey has been for the last few years, because he is one of the biggest action takers that we know. And he shares his journey. You should follow along once you get to know him here. And welcome, Justin. Welcome back to the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. It's been quite a wild ride, this COVID period, since we last had our podcast. So I'm looking forward to catching up, share my story with everybody, and hopefully inspire some people to get to that financial freedom like I just did.
Absolutely. So Joe, let's kick it off. For those that haven't met Justin before, I might do some scooting around today, guys, because I'm seriously trying to get out of this hot sunlight. Let's kick it off. Let's get to know Justin better. And we can also drop his previous podcast he did with us for a little in-depth, little before and after action with Justin. So let's do it, because we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, so we did a podcast with Justin a little while back, and I'll put the links to that down in the description below. But Justin, if you could just give us kind of like an overview of your life, how you got into real estate, and then like some of the stuff that we've missed out on, and then Julie can deep dive with you on that further down the road.
Sure, sounds good. Yeah, my journey in real estate investing really didn't start until 2016. So just over 6 years ago is when I got into the game. Prior to that, I was buying like a primary residence, living in it. I had owned some houses and I moved around, but it really wasn't until August 2016 is when I bought my first house hack property. And really the genesis of it was that I had these converging factors where, I was not, my job at Amazon was a little challenging, I'll put it. And then, so I wanted to get out of that. And then I was lucky enough, though, that Amazon stock was going way up. So, I wasn't liking my job. I had a lot of money coming in. And then the other biggest factor was that my dad had just been diagnosed with cancer at the time. And so I'm like, man, like he worked his whole life. He never got to enjoy anything. So I'm like, this is like my M&M moment, my one shot, my one opportunity to take all this Amazon RSUs and start parlaying into that cash flowing real estate to be able to get out of a W-2 life. So that really just started in August of 2016. And then I just retired September 2nd, 2022. So between the start and the end, it really started with, the first one was the house hack. Then I started in Eastern, and that was in Seattle area. And then I started getting into Eastern Washington because I couldn't find anything in Seattle that I really liked that would pencil. My day job at Amazon at the time was in finance. So it's very easy for me to analyze properties really quickly. And, without having I didn't want to do all my money into one deal. So I was trying to find deals where I could take that money and spread it over a lot of deals. And so, going into Eastern Washington and the city is in Yakima, I bought my first, or my, actual investment property that I wasn't living in May of 2017. And that was an 11 unit property. And then after that, I didn't see anything I liked in Yakima. I heard on Bigger Pockets that, hey, Milwaukee's really inexpensive place. And I just happened to going to Milwaukee in August of 2017. So I checked out Milwaukee area, ended up buying the duplex in October, bought another duplex in December of 2017 in Milwaukee. And then from 2018 to 2020, I probably on average been buying a property about every other month. And it's just taking the RSUs and buying originally. Then I was borrowing against RSUs to buy. Then I was cash out refinancing to buy. Then I got into seller financing most recently and creative financing. So as I'm moving in the journey, capital is more and more important. And even today, it's probably paramount. And so I'm like, how do I take my money, stretch that out, and buy as much cash flow as possible? So that's been my focus the last 6 years.
What markets did you buy in 2018 through 2022?
Seattle, Milwaukee, and Detroit.
Oh, wow. Look at that. I'm making my notes here. Wow. So do you still own, how many of the properties, do you still own the 11 unit, your first 11 unit?
I actually 1031 that, I think it was 2018. So about 14 months later, I think I made like $80,000. So I sold the 11 unit and I bought 5 duplexes and a triplex in Milwaukee with that. And I did a 1031 exchange. So no tax event for me. I just rolled it forward. But the difference is that, obviously the cash flow was much better on the 5 duplexes and the triplex, much more than what I had there in Yakima. And so I was like, how do I get more cash flow? Because if you want to get out of the rat race, equity, you can't eat equity. You can't spend equity per se. Right. Cash flow, you can live off of that. And so I'm like, I need to get more cash flow now. And so I was like, okay, let's reposition into an area where I can get more cash flow.
Awesome stuff. And so do you still own the 5 duplexes and the triplex?
I think I sold one of them. It's hard keeping track of them, but yeah, total portfolio today is 39 properties and 105 rental units.
Wow, that is insane. So 2 years ago, it was when we met you, when we first started talking, that might've been what, 2018, 19, 2021. You probably still had the 5 duplexes and the triplex maybe at that time. That is absolutely impressive. I want to back it up here for a minute and let's talk about how you paid for it. Let's talk about your journey on paying for the properties and how that may or may not work for today, because maybe due to the change in the market, maybe you have some tips for people. What are your tips for people working at Amazon, Microsoft, these places today that are in that same situation that want to get out of there? Maybe you're having a little impact on these, the way you started. Let's back it up. So tell us, you decided I'm going to go after this 11 unit. What'd you do?
So on that property, well, first, what's the main thing, the takeaway if you're a high paid tech person today?
Yeah.
6 months ago, you're riding high. You're very confident. You had a lot of equity on paper. Today's a different world. We're down, depends on what company. I think Amazon's down like 40 something, 50%. So your world feels different. So my number one takeaway is look at where you're spending your money and then really be diligent about pocketing some of that money and saving it. The days of having all this future money stack up is not really there. A lot of people are making much less than they did 6 months ago, 12 months ago, or 24 months ago. So monitoring your budget, start stacking that cash and be in a position to buy. Because with the recession that will most likely come in 2023, there's going to be huge opportunities. So get your house in order right now such that you're ready and you're on the offense versus, letting it happen to you and being on the defense. So that's my immediate takeaway. In terms of buying that first property, like I said, I had got all the way out of debt. And then I was like, okay, now I'm debt free. I got RSUs coming to me. So I ended up cashing in RSUs and then buying that 11 unit. I was so new and green at the time. I was like, yeah, I got the money to buy. And then they're like, well, show me the 6 months of reserves. And so I didn't even know what reserves were. And so I had to do borrow money from my brother and get it into my account to show reserves.
Well, let's back that up for a minute on the little tip when you're buying these properties.
Yes.
It's not just the purchase price. So give everybody a little bit of what you need to have be prepared to pay for when you start off. Yeah.
So on paper, a lot of times you'll hear, oh, you need 20 to 25% down to buy the house. That is true. That's the portion that you have to put down. But then there's the closing costs, which then increases that money that you got to put in there. But then there's, depending on the bank, they have different, I think they call them loan covenants, and that you need to have excess amount of liquidity, i.e. reserves, in an account such that they are comfortable with you that you're going to pay them back. they basically want to stress test you. Like, you got no rental income. Could you pay them back over those next 3 to 6 months, whatever the requirement is? And that's what I didn't know at the time. And today what I'm seeing is like, I just did a cash out refi on a property. And I want to say the loan was around like 90,000. They wanted to see reserves of like 45,000. And I'm like, what is going on? I mean, but banks are just so cautious right now that they want to make sure that when they give this loan, they're going to get paid back. So,
and originally, weren't you able to use your RSUs as proof of your reserves? And is that obviously has changed maybe or been impacted?
yes, exactly. And so, I mean, I would imagine they'd prefer like actual cash, because like I was saying, a couple minutes ago, is that, if you're Amazon or Google, whatever, all these main tech companies are down so much that, what you thought as reserves 2 months when you started and you put your offer in and now you're trying to close, those might have shifted down. And so, now if you have tons of them, okay, maybe you're okay. But if you have the cash, it's more risk, a safer risk for these banks to go with. But there's two ways I was doing it. There was the RSUs counting as like income. And then as I transitioned into, more, I'd say, advanced investor, I was then leveraging against it. So instead of selling the RSUs, taking the cash, I could get an asset-backed loan, borrow the money against those stocks, and then use that money to buy. And then the asset, i.e. the real estate, would then pay back the loan I had borrowed against the RSUs.
Not something you might be able to do today. That's a little riskier today, right?
Yeah.
So was that kind of like you were just going for it at the time because you didn't know what you didn't know, and you were just going to be damn well, what was your plan? I mean, or did it even cross your mind that might get called or anything like that?
So at the time, like obviously the world was different. We were ramping up, and just not Amazon. I'm just saying, if you looked at the world, everything was hot, increasing. And so it was a little bit more comfortable there. I do remember in the last podcast, I talked about that can go two ways. There's actually three ways, but the main two are like, you can borrow the money and make money, and the stock goes up. Perfect world. That's what happened for like 4 years, 5 years. Then the inverse could happen. You borrow money to go buy the asset, and then that goes down. And then also the RSUs go down in value. So actually
pretty much today's scenario.
Exactly. So March or April, I was getting margin calls now, because that was when the huge drops were happening with the Amazon stock. And so like a couple of times I had to feed a couple $1,000s into my account to bring my borrowed amount against the RSUs below the 60% loan to value. And so that's definitely, if you're doing that, you need to know that going in.
So let's zero in on that, because we like to deep dive on stuff. What are the parameters where you just said to hit the 60% loan to value? You also were talking about having reserves that are required, we'll call them covenants or conditions of these lenders. I mean, tips on that would be, you're not just going to want to cover your reserves that are required these days. You're probably going to want to make sure you have a cushion of that. Maybe, I don't know how much of additional 1.5 times that, or what would the tip be there? But what is it that made that condition kick in where you had to put in that money? Your loan to value?
So loan to value is their trigger, and depends on, the one that I have right now, you can do this pretty much with any of the major banks, but I'm at US Bank and I work through their wealth management group, and they have different tiers. If you have a portfolio of stocks, I think it was like 70%, but if you have only one stock, which I only had Amazon stock, then the max LTV of what you can borrow is 60%. So if I have $100,000 in stock, I can only borrow 60,000
of your portfolio. Now, We're not talking about the real estate property. We're saying you can borrow 60% against your Amazon stock.
Exactly.
Right. So, okay, gotcha. So what happened is your stock started to drop, and you were ended up borrowing more. So you had to, how does that work then? What did they have you do?
So then let's just use a simple example. So if it goes from 100,000 and I borrowed 60, it drops 50%, it goes to 50,000. The max that I can borrow is 30,000. That would mean that I borrowed 60, the 30 is the max relative to the 50,000. I would have to come to the table with 30,000 to pay that debt down to hit the covenants of that asset-backed loan. So That's the thing you got to be
What
watching
happens
at.
if you can't? What do they do?
If you can't, then you got to liquidate. So that's the reason why they have the 60%. So if it came down, actually in that example, you would still have to bring money because like you went from 100 to 50, but I'd already borrowed 60. You'd sell the 50,000 in stock. Then that would leave you with 10,000 and you'd have to come back, find from some other source to be able to pay them off.
Wow. Right. Yep. I mean, you guys, that's why you gotta understand the entire flow of the stack, right? And never get to the finish line of these deals that you guys are buying where you're just, I mean, a lot of you new investors are probably doing that, but where you're just skimming over the top, and you're just barely crossing the finish line, that sets you up, for some trouble. So,
Right.
Okay. So the 11 units, then we're going to go back. So you paid for the 11 unit project using your RSUs. How did you come up with the cash? Did you have the cash and you just use the RSUs as reserves or what? As proof of reserves?
On the first one, I actually sold the stock. Then
Okay.
I got the money and then I used that for the close.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't until maybe 2018 is when I heard about this asset-backed loan. And then I started using that. And then, it's not like I have a mass amount to where I could borrow. So I was just using cash flow from the properties plus my cash that I, just from living below my means to help buy these properties in the Midwest. And the thing about the Midwest is like I was buying duplexes for say 80,000 and I would need to bring, 15 to 20,000 to the table. So it's not a mass amount of money in relative if you're in Seattle, right? You need probably 10x that in Seattle. So I was doing a lot of these Midwest properties for cash flow, small bets, because like my thing is like, once I get rolling, I didn't want one investment to take me down. So I have a bunch of these small bets, 15, 20, 25, 30,000 type bets to help grow my portfolio up.
And when we say bets, we mean your cash invested in the deals, right?
Exactly. A bet as in I bought a property that I think is going to cash flow. And, in the Midwest, I count 0 for appreciation. I'm just focused on cash flow.
Right. Gotcha. And so, like you said, you were just using you did an exchange out of your 11 unit, which helped you buy. So of the 39 properties that you own now, what's the average? We want to give people hope, right? Because lots of us listening here, people are listening from everywhere, but anyone can buy property anywhere, guys. So what's the average down payment plus the down payment dollar amount plus the reserves that you need to have on your 39 deals? Have you worked your way up to get higher and higher? Or is it, like it's averaging out that it's 20 grand plus another 10 in reserves or what?
Yeah. So as I've become more experienced and I've shifted to seller financing creative deals, I've been able to lower my down payment because I'm direct to seller. I would say from 17 to like 2020, majority of that was $15,000 to $25,000 downs. These are duplexes, triplex in Milwaukee. As I got into 2021, 2022, it was more creative financing. And then I was like, geez, all my friends in Seattle are making all this equity and that they're able to do cash out refis. And I was like, so now I started buying into, call it greater Seattle area. Obviously those are much higher. And so it depends on your mix of properties, but I would say I just for a round number, roughly 20,000 is what it was taking me to get into properties.
Awesome. I just want to follow the flow of how long it took you aside from the seller financing, which everybody should be learning and pursuing from the beginning, right? That's the way to go from the beginning. But as far as your financing journey goes, when you got into those other deals, when did you start, basically using the properties to pay for your next deal?
Probably 2021 is when I did. No, 2020, I think is when I did.
How many deals in?
15 to 20, somewhere in there. Because I refinanced I think it was 12 properties at one time. Cash out refi, I got like 140,000, I think it was. So then I got all that equity. And actually, it was kind of absurd when you think about it. I borrowed and I took 140,000 out. And the interest rate went down, so I had actually a lower monthly payment. I mean, that we may never see that again, but it was absolutely awesome. Then I had that chunk of money, then I kept going, then I continued to buy. And so as it grows, it was increasing in value, cash out refi, pull it out, buy more, increases, cash out refi, buy more. The thing that was in my part, like I was saying before, is like I factor zero appreciation in the Midwest. And, on a percentage basis, these properties are up like 50% in like 5 years. So,
well, when we're talking about increasing the value and then being able to pull the cash out, but you're not in an appreciating market, you're just forcing appreciation by raising the rents and better management, correct? If you're saying on one hand, you're saying I'm buying in markets that don't have any appreciation, but yet you're using the appreciation to do a cash out refinance. How is that appreciation happening? It's happening through raising rents.
Not actually on that scenario. Now, am I raising rents and fixing it up? Yes. But majorities are small multifamily. So they go by comparables.
Right.
And generally the comparables on sales, not NOI. Now, if it was commercial property, you're 100% right. And I just did one of these a couple months back where I'm increasing the value, I'm increasing the rents, increasing the NOI, increases the value. But what I was doing in the heart of the investing, that was that if you looked at the economy and the lay of the real estate land in the U.S. is that the coastal properties were going up and mass amounts, double-digit percents probably in a lot of spots. And so when it got hard to make money, people started buying stuff in the Midwest. These properties are like 100 years old. They're cheaper to buy than to build. And so money just started flowing into the Midwest by, supply and demand. There's more demand than there was supply. It was raising the values of these properties.
Gotcha.
And so that I got lucky in that aspect is that it increased in value. And I don't foresee that changing given the world we're in today with the post-COVID world, if you will, where now we have people that are remote. So now you can live in the cheaper, call it Midwest area, and work for these larger companies via remote. The other thing that I think is going to happen a lot in the next couple of years is that we were so heavy, we offshored everything for like 40 years. I think we're going to see a lot of onshoring. And where are you going to put the onshoring stuff? Where do you have a lot of labor and where do you have a lot of cheap land and buildings? And where did we used to manufacture, in the early 1900s, right? I think it'll all come back into the Midwest. So I'm still sticking into these markets. I'm focused in Seattle now for more equity, faster, forced appreciation, but I'm going to maintain and probably scale up to bigger stuff in Milwaukee and Detroit because I think it has a good long-term projections on it.
Yeah. So your point is your theory of the future, which you're right. I mean, as the world is globally imploding, essentially, we're having all these problems around the world that we're going to start bringing stuff back home to the U.S. and have to have maybe another, what do you want to call it? Another chapter of life where we have what was the revolution, the industrial revolution, something, a restart of that and mixed with some technology. Yeah,
Part two,
because I've got a workforce housing RV park down in Texas that could use a little lift there. But well, good stuff. That is exciting. So you did that. Then you started jumping into the tiny homes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, the tiny homes, it was, I wasn't necessarily looking for tiny homes. I always combed through Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace, just looking to see if I can find anything that I can get seller financing on. And I happened to come across an ad, I think it was December of 18, on Christmas. And I actually bought 2 properties, one in Milwaukee and these 3 tiny homes from that one night scrolling through on the internet and Craigslist. And I was like, man, these are interesting. And then I started going on Airbnb. I'm like, man, what are these Airbnb tiny homes that make? And so I was like, oh, these, even at 50% occupancy at over $100 a night, I was like, that's a lot of money of rent relative to the price of these. So I bought 3 tiny homes, $50,000 a piece, $150,000 from a guy that was trying to Airbnb down in Puyallup area, Puyallup, Washington. And then, so I ended up purchasing those. What I thought was going to be a master plan, move them to my property, get all these Seattle rents. None of that came to fruition because the cost to do the utilities, I bought them and then I was trying to plan it. That was a learning that I was like, it was going to be like $80,000 to get them all set up. And at the same time, I wouldn't be able to do my Airbnb at my property in Seattle. And so
you mean your primary residence you were trying to bring the
Yes.
Airbnbs to, or the tiny homes to your primary residence.
Right.
Why didn't that didn't work? Because why?
So I was going to put them on my property. It's 2/3 of an acre, and it's kind of looks like a ski slope where it, kind of comes down and down. And the utilities are at the street. And so if the street is here and you need to get all the utilities up here, it's like 400 feet to get all the utilities out there.
Gotcha.
And just as a cost structure was too high, at least that I wanted to invest at the time. And so I ended up connecting with the Washington Tiny Homes Association, figuring out some alternative options because I had to move them from where I bought them to another spot. So I moved him to from a mobile home park to another mobile home park. Started it out there, wasn't doing very well. And then I connected with Todd McKellop's Seattle Tiny Homes. Yep. He has a property in Bonnie Lake right off 410. Once I shifted those properties or the tiny homes over to there, that's when started seeing the traction. And
is that his tiny home hotel community?
It is, yes. And
nice.
I don't even know how many he has there, but it's probably in the teens. So
wow.
It's 14, 15, something like that.
Nice. And so you moved yours over there and now he manages that for you?
Exactly. So he does all the management. I do nothing and I collect a check. I just check in with him once the, every month review what the results were. And then if there's any issues that we're facing in terms of reviews, that's about the only time I check in with them, or occupancy. So yesterday, we're seeing a major drop off from September to October in terms of booking. So I was like, okay, what can we do to start changing this around? Is it price? Is it reviews? Is it something else? And so that's usually what I'm talking about. But overall, he does all the work, and I'm, as passive as you can get.
And what do those numbers look like? You bought the tiny homes that were built, and then what does that look like? The whole purchase versus your rent. And if you guys should follow Justin because he posts all this stuff on his Facebook page and elsewhere. Look him up on Facebook. Yeah, there you go.
I was just pulling it up to see what it was. So I had, I bought 3, so 50 times 3, so 150,000. Then I had Todd at Seattle Tiny Homes build me another one. All in, that one was 75,000. So gross dollars was 225,000 all in. August was my best month ever, and it was 15,000 in gross rents. So
wow.
that's like mind blowing.
Wow.
Now that's obviously peak, and then it could get as low. October as it's shaping up now, just 2 months later, I'll make roughly enough to cover expenses if it stays how it is right now. So that 15,000, I ended up netting 9,500 out of it after expenses and everything. October I could actually break even. So
would you want to buy more of those, or you think it's too like this?
If I bought more, I'd want to have my own setup because I don't own the land. So Todd owns the land, right? And so every month I don't make any money until about 2,500 of revenue comes in.
Gotcha.
Because each lot has a rent that I got to pay, and then there's utilities and all that. So I really, if I had my own land, then I take that, I'm using that money to pay down the debt on the property. And so then it's a little bit better long-term play. The other thing that I like is I'm a control guy. I like consistency when it comes to cash flow. And I was just talking to another investor about this the other day, where I was like, I look at my portfolio. If you're like a stockbroker, there's this, talking about an efficient portfolio where you have some high risk and you have some conservative, or some people make stocks and bonds. So I've got my Midwest cash flow. I got my Airbnb rental income. That's more volatile. And then I got my long-term rentals that are in Seattle area. And so if we take all those together, they kind of average each other out. I'd much rather have that in today's world than 100% Airbnb tiny homes. Because it's feast and famine on Airbnb, especially if you are not differentiated. If you're just an average 3-bed, 1-bath, you're going to get chewed up in the near future here. Once travel slows down and, people aren't going to be able to spend that type of money anymore. So you got to make sure you're niched out to protect yourself.
Well, you got to make sure when you're buying those properties that, Airbnb is your option, but that it pencils as a straight up rental in case you need to, go back to the basics there. Well, God, you're such a smart guy. Let's talk about this other thing you're doing, which is the Turo. People probably
Yep.
don't even know what that means. Why are you doing it? Are you doing it just because it's, interesting to try it out? Tell everybody what it is. We've had another guy out of Miami do a big podcast with us on Turo. I don't know. We should make sure that that Justin sees that podcast, because our guy, I can't even remember his name because that was a couple years ago, was a big Turo guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you listened to that one or not, Justin, on our show.
I haven't yet.
Tell us what it is.
So Turo, at the very basic, if you're familiar with Airbnb, it's the same thing except for it's vehicles instead of housing. So I've heard, actually through a podcast I did with a guy out of the Bay Area, Juan Rohan, I had talked to him about Turo because he was doing it. And so that was in the back of my mind for the last couple of years. And then I saw other friends doing it and they're very successful at it. And I was like, I'm just, retiring out of Amazon and getting into my second phase of life. And I was like, this will be, a friend of mine was like, you need something to stay busy. And I was like, well, make it if I'm busy and it's a side hustle, that should work out good. Right. And so I ended up buying 2 cars while I still had my W-2 and got these 2 cars set up. So the 2 Subaru Crosstreks. And so I bought those somewhere, very beginning of September, I believe. And then with travel and everything, and by the time that the cars actually delivered, because there's just not cars on the lots in today's world. When the cars got delivered, I actually just started last week, was like my first week. So like I had owned them for almost a month before actually getting the cars on, because I had to be home to get the pictures and set up all the listings and then be able to connect with the people booking it. And so right now,
Airbnb for cars.
Airbnb for cars, exactly. And so I was just going to pull up while I'm here so I can see how much I've made. So
did you pay cash for the cars or did you finance the cars?
Oh, finance the cars. And so that's the one thing as I got into it. These cars are brand new. So they are $32,000 all in tax, title, insurance to walk out, right? $32,000. I got 2 loans through a local credit union, $0 out of pocket, no payments for 90 days.
Wow.
That's mind blowing, right?
Yeah.
So I started a business. I seeded a business with $1,000, and I've made $300 now, and I have $900 more in future bookings. And so the goal is in the first 90 days, take all that money, build up the account, and then that'll be the rest of the seed money. And there's really like 3 main expenses. You have the cleaning, you have the insurance, and then you have the mortgage, or not the mortgage, but the car payment.
So what does that run? What does that run for one car?
So on each car, $32,000, 4% interest rate. I want to say the payment's around $570, so a little over $500. And then I had the insurance is around $130, so that's about $700. And then so roughly call it $50 between the Brown Bear car wash monthly and cleaning supplies. So rounded numbers is about $750. And so I would need to make, roughly with the splits that I'm doing on Turo, just over $800 to be able to break even. And
what's the splits? What do you mean the splits?
So the way it works with Turo is that depending on how much insurance coverage you want, means that the more money they take. So if you want a lot of coverage, meaning if something happens to the car and low deductible for you, that's 60%. So every $100 you make from revenue, you get $60, Turo gets 40. I went to the other side and I said, I want the least amount. This is the same with the RSUs, right?
Yeah.
It can be good, it can be bad. So I'm only doing 10%. So if something happens, I got to have a $2,500 deductible. And so out of every $100, I get 90, they get 10.
Gotcha. And where do you keep the cars?
So I actually live right next to the airport. I'm 3.5 miles from the airport. And depending on the time of day, it's about $20 to $25 for a lift, or you can take the bus directly to my house. I'm right on a bus line. So I have the 2 cars at my property and doing a week and a half, and I'll just have the people come to my property, pick it up. The beauty of it is that in today's world, these cars are, smart cars. So they, I don't have to be home to do it. So yesterday I was actually driving, the person was late. to come get it. And so like I was driving into my real estate brokerage office, Keller Williams in Bellevue. And so the lady checked in. So she sent me her picture at the car with her face, her ID, and I checked on the mobile app of Turo, her birth date and her picture versus what she sent me in traffic while I'm driving. And then I was able to remote unlock at the same time on the mobile app. She picked the car up and was gone. So all that happened on I-4 was 405 and the S curves yesterday at around 10 o'clock. So
why would somebody want to do that versus just go and getting the car rental from the airport?
So what I've noticed is I back when I got into it, my finance background was like, does this make sense? Like, what can you rent it for on Turo and what can you get at the airport? In the post-COVID world, rental car prices are not what they used to be. Yeah, I remember I used to get rental cars in 2018, 2017, like $25 or something a day, right? And there's just gobs of cars that it was so easy to get a cheap rental car. To get a rental car at the airport today, all those large companies, the Hertz of the world, the Enterprise of the world, my assumption is they travel basically died overnight with COVID. They divested a lot of their cars and they've kind of right-sized their operations for today's world, which means the prices are much higher. The other thing that comes into play
because they have less inventory or whatever.
Exactly. The supply and demand of the rental cars is much more I don't know if it's balanced, but with the amount of supply, it's had to raise the price to meet market equilibrium. And the other thing that is the key factor is my friends that are already on there are doing on average $70 a day. I don't have it at $70. I have it at $40 so that I can get bookings, get experience, make a little bit of money. But most importantly, you got to have 10 reviews. It's like Airbnb being Superhost. Turo has their Superhost status. So I already have 4. As soon as I get 10, then I can get into that Superhost. So once I get into the Superhost, everything will be good.
Wow. Are you, I know some people are using that combined with their Airbnb properties, Turo with their Airbnb properties, right?
Yeah.
Get Dominic Wood on here. See what he's up to.
Mine's not an Airbnb. So it's a house hack. I live on the top. I rent the bottom out. I converted from an Airbnb to medium-term rental. So usually 90-day stay. So the Airbnb people aren't renting the Turo, but it is on the same property. Let me ask you that
question, because I've seen you use that word. What does medium-term, mid-term rental mean to you?
Hey guys, it's Julie here with a quick break from the show to discuss an opportunity some of you may have interest in, which is to work more closely with me. On almost a daily basis, I get calls from investors and brokers, both new and experienced, asking me for guidance or advice. I love helping you guys out, and it keeps me on my toes too. So with that said, I wanted to let you know that I have a private broker coaching community called the VIP Education Community. And the best part is that it's 100% free. That's right, it's free to join. So whether you're a traditional broker or a broker investor, my VIP education community offers personalized one-on-one coaching from not just me, but also from my experienced broker friends with expertise in all disciplines of real estate and real estate investing. We'll teach and share our modern marketing strategies, our tech and lead generation resources, plus teach you how to identify or offer up opportunities for yourself or for your clients using techniques such as seller financing, lease options, land entitlement deals, BRRRR investing, flipping, multifamily or commercial coaching, whatever you like. We've got it all covered for you. The future of real estate is changing fast, and to stay in the game, it's time to learn about all the options you can offer your buyer and seller clients, as well as, if you want, learn how to use those skills to grow your own real estate portfolio. If you'd like more details about joining my VIP education community, reach out to me at julie@seattleinvestorsclub.com or text me at 206-910-2985 or just send me a Facebook message. My new favorite phrase is community equals confidence. So let's navigate the future of real estate together. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, so I was just at Bigger Pockets conference in San Diego, and Sarah Weaver did this book called 30-Day Stay. It's all focused on medium-term rentals. So if you're wanting to get into that, you should buy our book. But very simplistically, a long-term rental is usually 1 year. Short-term rental is usually 30 days or less. So 30 to 360 is roughly a medium-term stay. But most of the minor traveling nurses, they're usually getting a 3-month or 4-month contract with whatever local hospital in the area.
Yeah.
That's the medium-term kind of range.
Gotcha. So you're having to furnish those, right?
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. So you own multifamily, you own tiny homes, you got Turo, you got your midterm rentals, you've got your regular rentals. Which one is your favorite, or what do you feel is, I know you're a finance guy, so you're like, let me get that mixed portfolio, which you've done a fantastic job of. Is there one that you feel like going forward in the future, now that you've tapped into, obviously, to the seller financing as well, which that's a whole nother path we can go on a different day. But is there one type of investment that you enjoy more, or one you're like, this is hands down the best lucrative cash flow model there is? What do you think? You've tried them all. This is like our little squirrel. We got Justin's like our little squirrel out there trying everything for you guys. He's trying to buy properties with RSUs. He's trying to leverage against his RSUs. He's doing exchanges. He's doing tiny homes. He's messing them up. He's, buying in the Midwest, back in Seattle. Man, he's doing everything. So give it to us.
I'm definitely a dabbler. Back to that Bigger Pockets, they had these buttons that you would put on your lanyard about what you did. And I had like 8 buttons because it was like, out of state, short term, medium term, seller financing, and then all that stuff. So yeah, I'm definitely a dabbler. I would say my focus right now, there's 2 things. The number one thing I love is doing deals, and creative deals is even better. And, now, post W2 life, now I can spend the time where I want. So I'm 100% focused on connecting buyers and sellers. And I'll call it Greater Seattle. So basically within an hour of Seattle, up to Everett, down to call it like Tacoma area. My goal is to find properties in that areas. Because I'm in a mastermind right now, Springboard to Wealth with Thatch Wynn. I'm sure most people on here are familiar with them. So I'm focusing on finding off-market deals or listing deals for people in the area. But in a perfect world, I find a seller, depending on what they want to do with it in the condition. I either list it, I wholesale it, or I buy it for myself. And so that's 100% of my time and focus is going to be on that. The Turo, once I get it stabilized, I want to pay somebody to manage that for me. So my main focus is connecting buyers and sellers in the Greater Seattle area is my future.
So you're not wanting to focus your money buying in the Midwest any longer? You want to stay local and grow your whole world and your whole show local. Is that
it? So I'm still a dabbler. So my main focus, I'll say 80-20. So 80% is going to be in Seattle. So I do have a lot of people that reach out that want to invest, and whether it's private money or joint ventures and stuff like that. So I'll probably do more deals in the Midwest because it's easier to deploy and lower amount to deploy deals. So call that, say, 20%. The main focus, 80%, is going to be Greater Seattle, connecting buyers and sellers.
Good stuff, brother. What about what was your favorite topic, or what do you think's the best piece of advice that you've learned this year? Maybe that came from BPCon, maybe that came from Thatch. What do you think is your biggest takeaway lesson that you've learned this year, or skill set?
There's 2 paramount things that I'm doing right now, and that I've already been doing, but it's even more paramount, is that in today's world of, I just did an 8% cash out refi. 30-year fix for even primary residents are going to be 8% pretty soon. So you've got to be able to do creative financing. That is the only, whether you're an investor or an agent, the only way you're going to be doing deals is going to have to manufacture deals. That is through creative financing. So you got to find the right people, you got to be able to educate, and then you got to be able to transact on those. So focusing on that. And then the other one is cash. Ray Dalio was saying cash is trash, but I think in today's world, cash in your hands is paramount. What will happen is that liquidity is going to dry up. So I just quit my job. I have reserves already, but my focus has been, I took on a bunch of equity lines, a bunch of credit cards, And I have been pushing, because a lot of these credit cards have introductory rates for 1 year, 0%. I have been pushing rehabs and expenses all on these lines of credit. Why is there? Why? Hold on to my cash such that if something drastic happens, I have more runway. So like, you got to be diligent with your cash, and that's like how you spend it and how you don't spend it. So being focused on saving your money at the same time, pushing it to credit lines. This is back to the insurance thing with Turo and the RSUs. So like, you got to be cognizant when you're pushing spend onto debit or to lines of credit and to credit cards, that you have to understand money management. So I would say the last 30 days, I spent a mass amount of time on lines of credit, credit cards, where to move it, the monthly payments, how's that all going to work out? And it gets fairly complicated. If you're just getting in the game, it's simple. It's like you have your W-2 income and you have one credit card payment, right? So like I don't even like 5-6 companies, and every one of them has checking accounts, credit cards, lines of credits, loans. So I have probably in the tune of, I don't even know, like 60 or 70 like payments that are always going out and then money coming in. So like I have to actually manage cash flow, which I didn't have to do in W-2 land, because like, I was getting, not RSUs, but like net 8,000 a month roughly. So that's a lot of wiggle room to where I never really had to monitor it. But I'm trying not to pull any money out of my reserves. So the only way to do that is you have to monitor where the money's going and when it's going out. And, that's why I've been trying to push more into these lines of credit and the credit cards that give me runway, let the business cash flow then pay that back, such that I'm not taking reserves. The key thing that I think people need to take away from here is that credit used to be easy. Credit's not going to be easy to get. And what you got is going to be gone or reduced, in my opinion. So if I've already spent the money, they can't ask for it back. So that's why I'm like, hold as much cash as I have right now, be liquid, such that I can weather any storm that's coming up.
I don't know why in my head, have you ever heard of the book Profit First?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why the whole time you're talking, in my head kept going, profit first, and the whole system of, setting up I don't know what we would call it, a brain tree, where you're splitting it to almost help you manage those balances that you need to keep, make sure you're getting paid, make sure you're having some fun, make sure your operating stuff is getting covered, your reserve fund is getting covered, your tax fund is getting covered, right? It seems like kind of like with what you're talking about, a profit first setup. Have you done it?
No, my goal for 2023 is to do that. So that, I believe, is that Mike McAllowitz? I think.
Yes, it is. Motorbike Mike.
Yes. So I need to do that because like I was saying, there's 39 properties. So you can imagine in January, tax bills was like $100,000, something like that, for property tax. So, historically, I just been doing lump sums, right? But I want to convert to where I start paying those monthly, because life is different.
Yeah.
I'm in post W-2 world, and as I'm building my real estate business, agent business, wholesaling business, I got to be watching my cash flow. So instead of lump sum payments, I'll probably pay those over time. And then at the same time is setting up in that book, it talks about obviously profit first. So put the profit into the account, put the tax into a separate account, insurance into a separate account. These big lump sum dollar amounts, what I'm trying to do is take variability out of my cash flow streams. Because like when you're a full-time entrepreneur, liquidity and cash flow management is paramount. And so that was like my quick crash course I got once I left my W-2 job. And so profit first is a mandatory that I got to get on that in 2023.
Got to do it. Joe managed our profit first stuff. Joe, when so like when Justin gets his monthly cash flow in per property, on the profit first system, Joe managed it for us. You set up your percentages. Part of it goes to your tax account. Part of it goes to your profit account. Part of it goes to your operating account. Does that, Joe, when they make that deposit every month and you've set that up, is it an automatic or did you actually have to do something?
I actually had to go in and do something when I managed it through BECU. There might be some other banks that have an automated version, but it literally only took took me the amount of time that it did to do our 5 different transfers. So it was like 5 or 10 minutes at most, because you just have all of the lump sum in the one account, and then you just have to do a percentage on your calculator and just transfer it in 5 times or however many different accounts. As you get more technical, if you're doing like a marketing budget versus, just a major operating budget, then you can have more transfers, but it's super easy. And if you had someone trusted, you could have, someone else do that for you. I know a lot of accountants or CPAs will actually handle that for you at a small cost.
Yeah, it's super awesome. Then you never have to worry if you funded your tax account or it's so awesome. We love you, Motorbike Mike. Thanks for writing that book. I think most of you guys, it's called Profit First. Go out and grab it. Super awesome. Well, boy, we could talk to you forever. This guy, as you can tell, is an action taker, right? Absolute action taker. And if you guys haven't figured it out yet, he's talking, the future of real estate is learning these options, whether you're an investor, a wholesaler or a broker, you need to, the cat's out of the bag, right? That modern real estate, and be able to talk these different languages with sellers in between a cash offer and, a listing. What all those options are in the middle, that's where the gold conversation is. And you can get business like crazy, any type of business that you want, right? By learning how to speak modern real estate like that. So that is definitely my specialty, and my message to the world that I'm trying to put out there is learning how to be a modern real estate investor or wholesaler. It applies to all of us if you touch real estate. So learning how to have those conversations is key. We're going to be talking a lot about that as we roll into 2023, because they can even save you, right? If you're an investor that's got a deal that's going down the tubes, there are solutions for you with creative real estate. Maybe if you got a bad flip going, you might think about a lease option might be able to save you. Not only for your current deal, but actually end up getting you back to where you want to be on your sale price and help you with your taxes. More on that, or join us on a Thursday at our weekly mastermind where we talk about that kind of stuff. So super awesome. Justin, where's the best place for people to watch? And, because you are reporting back some of your stats and activities. What's the best place where people can follow along with you?
The number one spot is on Instagram. Instagram is JC Cambra. That's predominantly where I'm posting everything, which then funnels over to Facebook. And my goal here is to get more content out there. So I'll be pushing more through Instagram. But I need to get onto this TikTok trend ASAP, and then YouTube as well. So I'll be starting to build that out in the near future here as well.
Awesome. You're going to start your own YouTube channel?
Yes, I need to. In the future, this is, Thatch is very good. Thatch Wynn is very good at Instagram. He's blowing up TikTok, YouTube, and everything. And he explained it you basically have a free billboard that a lot of eyeballs are out there. So in my mind, I'm like, this is one of the last opportunities where we're going to be able to get this type of audience at scale for zero cost, except for your cost to do the content. And most of my content is just off of my phone, just what I'm doing every day. So it's not like it's a lot of cost, it's more effort. So I've got to build that out such that I can attract more buyers and more sellers to make transactions.
There you go. Well, brother, we'll be watching for all that stuff. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it down for today. Go get on Justin's Instagram. And if you want to hang out with us more, because we're going to be talking about all these kind of topics, especially the modern real estate, which includes seller financing and lease options and loan assumptions, and basically how to take advantage of any conversation that you have in real estate to make you a rock star, then come hang out with us on Thursdays, every single Thursday from 11:30 to 12:30. You just need to go to our meetup.com page for Seattle Investors Club and grab that link. It is free for you to show up and be part of that conversation. And it is fun. We do some serious deep dives over there. And we look forward to seeing you over there. Where can everybody find the details of today's podcast, Joe?
Yeah, you can get everything we've talked about in written form, and including links, by going to seattleinvestorsclub.com/170. That's seattleinvestorsclub.com/170. Make sure you smash or hit or click that like button if you like our content. We'd really appreciate it.
Oh, Justin says you didn't answer the Turo, why it works. I can answer that quickly. Yeah, do it, brother. Lay us last Turo tip.
All right. So the question that you had asked was, why would people not just rent it at the airport, right? And so I was talking about supply and demand, the prices got higher. So one, the pricing is higher, but two, so I just did a couple different car rentals via the apps to try to rent from the airport. And I believe it's the same thing that happened with Uber and the same thing with Airbnb. There's a lot of overhead and, most importantly, taxes associated that those large businesses that are already in place have to pay, such that when I booked a $70 rental, it ended up being like $95. So, and that's per day. So like every day there's like 20, depending on the price, it's a percentage. So say $20 to $25 of this, burden or cost that is going into the rental when you get it out of the airport. Now, if they do a 3-day stay and it's, $25 times 3, that's $75. If it's $25 Uber ride to and from my spot, they net $25. For some people, that's a lot of money. And for convenience, right, they might choose to do that. So that's like the simple why it works. It's the same reason why Airbnb works and why Uber works.
Yeah.
There's the structure of how of the businesses, the taxes and cost structure is what makes it profitable for us. I guess we're contractors in a way of leasing out these cars.
Is there a big Turo inventory in Seattle or no?
To be honest with you, I didn't look at the total supply. I just looked at, hey, I'm close to the airport, and if the numbers make sense, the calculations I just did, and if I get, I verified my friends that are doing it. I think they were like roughly 60 to 70% occupancy, and I was like, okay, these numbers make sense for me. Because I live close to the airport, I should be doing better in theory than anybody who's further away. Yeah. So proximity to demand, I think, is what is my key factor of what's going to help me long term. Now, if I was further away, I probably would have done more analysis. Further away from the airport, would have done more analysis. But my backstop is just like if you have an Airbnb short-term rental, you need to be able to do long-term rental at the end, right? Another alternative is I could do, say this Turo blows up, I make no money or lose money. I have two options. I could lease this to somebody and make a spread. The other option is that I could just sell it.
Yeah.
And in today's world, I might be able to get out unscathed just because there's not that many vehicles that are out there right now. So I would probably take a little bit of hit, but maybe not too mad, especially if I sell it on terms, right? So there is options. I have already thought about the fallback options. So
yeah, man, brother, you're doing a lot. I also honestly think you have to have the right personalities to handle all this too, right? Because it's a lot. I can't wait to challenge you to see how you start like using VAs and getting out of all this stuff and just be sitting there getting your mailbox money from Cabo like you just were. That'll be next year's conversation where we can't reach Justin. We're gonna have to speak to his VA because he's now gone to the next level, right? He's figured it all out. Now he's handed it all out to somebody else to manage, right? Good.
Exactly. I just started actually. So I hired REI Call Center. Okay. I just sent them my list and they're going to start doing my lead gen. So I send them a list of properties I'm looking at, and their whole thing is they're calling thousands of numbers a week. And then those then funnel down to prospects. And then I go meet them, try to convert those leads into agent listing, a wholesaling, or I buy it or find an investor for it. And so that's my first step of scaling. That is a great idea a year from now, because that's my biggest limiting factor is like, I'm a single point of failure. If I am gone, everything falls apart. So like, I've got to figure out how to scale it up such that one, I have stability and more time back. But two, the only way that I can get exponential money is you've got to leverage up people. And so that's 2023. We can talk about that then.
Yeah, we'll be watching. Good stuff. All right, everybody. We're going to sign off for today. And thanks for watching. Smash the like button or whatever Joe told you to do. If you don't do it, he's going to make you do 100 push-ups. So you better do it. So, all right, we'll catch you next time. Peace out.